All right. Well, good morning, Rotary District 7770, and welcome to Conversations with Rotary Action People for Monday, March 15th. My name is Donald Hovis, and I'm your CWRAP host, and I am from the Chicora Rotary Club in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Today, we're going to do all things Rotary Youth Exchange with past district governor from the Rotary Club of Mount Pleasant, Mr. Lou Mello. Lou, we look forward to your presentation in just a moment. We'll go over some announcements and I will get started. One last request, please mute your lines. I'm hearing some background noise. Please mute your lines, folks. Introducing your CWRAP team, our public image chair from the Rotary Club of 5 Points in Columbia, Mary Gask. Mary, good morning, and thank you for setting up today's speaker and all of our speakers on this wonderful program that has been going, folks, for almost 1 year. We're almost to the 1 year anniversary of CWRAP. Now, yesterday was Pie Day, not the pie that you eat, but it was Pie Day. So if you enjoyed some pie yesterday, how about go to the chat box and put your name, your Rotary Club. If you are a president-elect for the next year, please say that as well. And if you had some pie yesterday, tell us what kind of pie you enjoyed. Mr. Lou, good morning, sir, and thanks for being here.
Good morning, Donald. Good morning, all. Nice to be here.
Looking forward to your presentation.
Good. I think you can see the screen. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through sort of a generic presentation of what Youth Exchange is about. And then we're going to talk specifically about what's going on in our district, what's going on in the Youth Exchange world, what kind of decisions are being made in terms of the Rotary International Board of Directors and so forth. So let's jump right in. I'll try to make this section quick because I'd like to be able to give plenty of time to ask questions. So first of all, the avenues of service, Youth Exchange involves both international and youth, so 2 of the 5. The Youth Exchange primary goal is to promote peace and understanding. And the last figures we have for 18-19, we had over 10,000 Rotary Youth Exchanges. There are other youth exchange groups in the world. They are all for profit. We're the only ones that are nonprofit and total volunteer organization. This is also the very first contact that students and parents have with Rotary. So what is impacting Youth Exchange? By a conservative estimate, at least 6 Rotarians per every exchange student. Your Club YEO, which is Youth Exchange Officer, Club YEC, which is Youth Exchange Counselor, a Club President, the District Governor, the Youth Exchange Chair, which is me for the district, in case you did not know that. And then you have inbound and outbound coordinators. So 10,000 students, 6 times 6, that's 60,000 Rotarians. Then you have the families, the extended families, sponsored districts and clubs, host families, host school, host district and club. So basically, the impact of 10,000 students in 1 year touches over 2.5 million people. Some terminology. I'm going to try to remove this thing on my, there we go. Some terminology. Inbound, that's a high school student from a foreign country hosted by Rotary clubs in another country. An outbound, just reverse, high school student from the home country who travels to another country with Rotary Youth Exchange. A rebound is an outbound that has just returned home at the end of their exchange. And a Rotex is a Rotary Youth Exchange alumni who becomes actively involved in Rotary Youth Exchange after they return. We have a number of Rotex in our district. They do get involved. I have them help with training. I have 2 of them on the district committee, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Types of exchanges. There are 2 types. A long-term, which is generally 10 to 11 months. It's for an academic year. The student attends school. They live with 2 or 3 families in the host country. All exchange students are required to attend high school while on exchange. The short-term program is basically a summer program for the most part. It's family to family. A student of ours might go to France and spend 3 to 4 weeks with a family in France that has a similarly aged student of the same gender. And then those two students will come back and spend 3 or 4 weeks here. The organizational structure is very simple. We are in the North American Youth Exchange Network. Then there are other networks all across the world. In our North American Exchange Network, we have multiple districts that join together to administer youth exchange. So you might have maybe 15 districts functioning as a multi-district, whereas each individual district will host their kids individually, but they'll have an administrator kind of like handling all the paperwork. We're in the independent East. So we are an independent district. We are not a multi-district. I have looked at the pros and cons of doing a multi-district, but because our program is relatively small in terms of the number of students out and in, and that's the way we like it, we don't really see a need to get involved with the multi-district. The leadership structure, everything, of course, Rotary International, they certify districts to participate. The district governor supervises every district program, and of course would be supervising the youth exchange program as well. We have a youth protection officer. Then you have your youth exchange chair, then the club president, a club youth service committee. Then you have your club youth exchange officer or club youth exchange counselor. The only difference between those two is gender. We like to have a man and a woman serve as youth exchange officers. And so if they're hosting a male student, then the man would be the counselor. And if it's a girl student, then the woman would be the counselor. Otherwise, they do exactly the same thing. And then, of course, you have the host family and the student themselves. Eligibility. We want them to be in good academic standing, at least the top 50% of their class, primarily because they're going to be going abroad. They're learning a new language, a new culture, and it's hard enough if they're, in terms of the language and culture, if they're not really sharp and in the top 50% of their class. The ages are between generally 15 to 15 and a half and 18 and a half, sometimes 19. That is kind of worked out between districts. Some districts won't take any student that's graduated high school. Others won't send any student abroad unless they've graduated high school. So it's a balancing act all the time, working with our partners around the world. There's a medical exam, student and parent interviews, and then they have to be sponsored by our local Rotary Club. So the maximum age for long-term, of course, is determined by the host country school system, because a district might say, well, we'll take somebody that's 19 and a half, but the school system says, nope, we're not going to take somebody that old. A family affiliation with Rotary is not required, not at all. Not to be a host family, not to be a student. No affiliation with Rotary is required. We do find that that's a great opportunity, though, when we have students and parents that might get very interested in Rotary as they see how this program works. Example timeline for outbounds. September, information sessions. October, completing the full application. And we have this application online, so it's all in a database. November, completing it. In January, we generally have our district interviews with all the students who have applied. And of course, I have been working with these students from the time they sent a preliminary application in August all the way through the fall to get their application complete, because it involves a lot of the things you see there, but even more. Lots and lots of forms, lots of requirements. So it is quite an ordeal, I think, for some of the students to get all this stuff done. After we do the interviews in January, we will assign country. What we will do is I'll give the students a list of the various partners that we exchange with. And we have about 20 different partners that we've normally exchanged with. And then I'll ask for the students to give me their top 3 or 4. Usually, everybody wants to go to Spain, France, and Italy. Spain, France, and Italy, every year the same. So I have to talk with those students individually and parents to say, there's some other opportunities. and kind of fill them in on what those opportunities are. You know, there's South America, there's the Baltic, there's Czechoslovakia and Slovakia, which is a fabulous place to exchange. So that is a little bit of work that we do with the students to get them to open up their eyes to a new opportunity. So then we have orientation and training, and May and June, visa processing and training. And usually towards the end of July or first part of August, they depart on exchange. So the outbounds go out from here to wherever they're going, and the inbounds come here. And usually, I usually have them here about 1 week before school starts. That way they can sort of settle in with their host family before they go right off to school. Club sponsorship. The club for sponsoring an outbound, basically you pay a district fee, $750. That's pretty much all you have in terms of a financial commitment. But we do like for the club that's sponsoring an outbound to start getting that student involved with your Rotary meetings, maybe Rotary Club service projects, give them a sense of what Rotary's about here at the ground level. Hosting a foreign student for an inbound, it's roughly $2,000 because that is made up of the same $750 district fee. And then the host club will give your student $100 a month stipend. This is spending money for them. Now, most of them will come with some of their own money, and many of them will have like a debit card that their parents provide to them. But the $100 comes from the club. And that's something that, you know, it's a very, very simple thing to do for a club. And our outbound kids get exactly the same in return when they go abroad. The equivalent of $100. It might be $80 in Peru. It might be $150 in Switzerland. Cost of living is much higher there. Okay. What do we need from you? We need the clubs to be an advocate. When I send information to the clubs, basically in late spring, roughly May, generally, I'll send information out to the incoming presidents and youth exchange officers, if you have them, to say, okay, let's be on the lookout for potential outbounds. So we will want them to apply with a preliminary application in August. So we need you to advocate the program. So I'll be sending information to all the clubs late April, early May about the program. And all we're just looking for you is to help find potential outbounds. Secondly, we need clubs to host inbounds and sponsor outbounds. Third, volunteers, obviously, to participate in youth exchange is either a youth exchange officer or counselor. And fourthly, host families. Now, we have had clubs tell us it's so hard to find host families. So what we did 3 years ago, we changed the application process so that every single outbound student has to provide us the names, addresses, phone numbers, and signatures from 3 host families. So we actually have our outbound finding the host families that will host the inbound. And this has taken a tremendous amount of pressure off of the clubs and made it much easier for them to sort of schedule the host families, or maybe they'll have to find one. You know, sometimes you can't get the host families to work with the schedule because they both want to host first, they both want to host last, and then you got holidays. So it gets to be a little bit of a managing issue. And so the host club might have to find another family. But generally, we have 3 families that are found by the outbound student. We have youth protection. We take Department of State tests every year. We take youth protection tests. We take host family. We take 4. When I say we, I mean the volunteers. Every single volunteer, we take 4 tests every single year. Host families take 2 of those tests. Host family training and youth protection. So youth protection is extremely important. We spend quite a bit of time on it in training. So how do we get the future of Rotary? Beginning with our youth, we got Interact, RILA, Youth Exchange, Rotaract, and then Rotary. So we've had a number of our exchange students have become Rotarians over the years. And our program goes back many, 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 many years. I mean, I've talked with folks who were chairs like 35 years ago. So it's been a pretty dynamic program for years and years. So there's just a quick photo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to give you a little quick update on exactly what our current situation is relative to the pandemic. In 2019 and 20, nearly 2 years ago, our group of inbounds, we had 17 of them. We had 13 outbounds that year. Well, March of 2020 hit. And of course, they were all stuck at home or with their host family or wherever they might have gotten stuck. And you had some districts around the world that said, oh my gosh, everybody has to go home immediately. Well, that wasn't quite as easy or even as smart as you might have thought right at the bat, because I had outbounds in France and Italy that I felt were much safer there, specifically where they were with the family, et cetera, than coming back here on a plane. Secondly, plane flights began to disappear. I would have parents who would say, well, I'm going to put my kid on a plane next week. Go to the airport, it's canceled again and again and again. So the long story short is about half of our inbounds and about half of our outbounds spent the full year abroad or here. And they didn't go home until late July, which is their normal time. The other half went home anywhere between the end of March and roughly June. And most of that was dependent upon the situation with the parents, what they felt was best for their student, because I would never tell a parent what they should do. What I would do is I would say, listen, here's the situation here in the US, in South Carolina, in Charleston, in Beaufort, in wherever the students were. Here's the situation with trying to find a flight home, et cetera. Now, you tell me if your situation is safer, then by all means, let's get your kid on a plane and send them home. So it took a lot of conversing back and forth, talking with parents on the phone, emails, et cetera. But basically, half the kids stayed here, half went home. Half the kids came back from overseas, half stayed where they were. So that was 1920. So we were planning on having full exchanges in 2021, which would have started last August. Well, that was obviously not possible. And then the board of directors basically told the governors, you can't travel. They also said, we're not going to let kids travel on exchange. So initially, they delayed any exchanges from July of 2020 through December of 2020. So we were supposed to be able to start back up January 2021, depending on the situation. Well, the situation got better in some places, got worse in other places. And at that point, we were still working with our partners. And I had 7 inbounds who were still willing to come in January. I had 6 outbounds who were still willing to go out in January. None of that happened. So long story short, everything got canceled in terms of the actual exchange. But in the meantime, we started processing applications last August to go out this August for the 21-22 year. We only had 6 applications for outbounds. 3 of the girls who lost their year for 2021 decided to defer and go out in 21-22. So of the 6 initial, that dropped down to 3. So right now we have 6 outbounds that are ready and willing to go in August. I have no idea what the inbounds are going to be, because I would not normally get their applications until April, roughly, mid to late April. And then we start processing them. So the current situation is we don't know how many inbounds we're going to have. I'm pretty certain it's going to be a lower number than our usual 15 to 17. We do have only 6 outbounds instead of our normal 13 to 15. And parents obviously have concerns, and I have concerns. And I've told every single parent, no matter what, we won't send anybody until we know it's absolutely safe. So in the meantime, we district chairs around the world, some districts have decided not to have an exchange program in 21-22. So Sandy, when you brought that up earlier, that's where that came from. But they're a very small minority of the districts around the world. One of our partners, Denmark, has decided not to do exchanges in 21-22. All the other partners we have in Europe and in the Far East and in South America, they all still want to do them, and we're all hopeful to do them. We just don't know exactly when they're going to start. So we've had some conversations with our Rotary International directors, and a number of us have, sent them emails and talked with them on the phone and so forth. So what happened about 10 days ago, the president of Rotary International, Holger Kanak, President-elect Shekhar Mehta, and the president nominee, Jennifer Jones, the three of them got on a Zoom call with all of the district chairs in the world that wanted to participate. And then the Youth Exchange staff at RI moderated this. We were asked to send questions in advance, which many people did. And then when we started the Zoom program, the three senior leaders really wanted to know what our thoughts were, our concerns were, our suggestions and recommendations were. And so we told them basically. And some of us were like, we'd like to get started. We need to know a date. We need to know if we can start in July or August. If that's not possible, what about October? If that's not possible, should we target January? But we have to give the students some sort of a date and the parents some sort of a date so they know whether or not to keep doing what they're doing, because they have to do visa applications and lots of other things. Some might need to get inoculations. So we had this 1 hour Zoom call. It was very, very good. The board of directors is going to meet on March 19th, specifically on Youth Exchange, period. Their regular meeting just took place a few days ago. But on March 19th, the board of directors is meeting, and they will decide at that point what the best approach is. My personal thought is they will probably delay the program, maybe as long as through the end of the year, because I know that they cannot say to students, you have to be vaccinated because of the individual country regulations and so forth and health concerns. But it may turn out that the districts themselves in a specific country will say, yeah, you do need to be vaccinated. So if we're partnering with Germany and Germany decides an inbound kid has to be vaccinated, then we have to find a way to get our kid vaccinated, or they can't go to Germany. So a lot of that is going to take place in terms of discussions as soon as the board of directors makes a decision on March 19th. And of course, I've let all of our students know what's going on. And, some are like just terrified because they lost the full year before. And now they think they might lose it again. And I can't tell them any more than what I've just told you. We won't know it until we know it. And we will try to do exchanges. If they delay them till January, that's fine. They'll still get 7 months. And 7 months will still be a great exchange. It might not be 10 or 11, but it'll still be a great exchange. Okay, I've spoken enough. Let's open it up for questions.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate your presentation. At this time, if you have a question, we will ask that you please post it in the chat box, and we'll ask that to Lou. And there is a comment here. Will you let us all know the decision after 3/19? And I'm sure you will.
Yeah. I initially I've copied in Paul and Pauline and Bob and Mike in terms of the kind of the fact that we had this Zoom meeting with the senior leaders. But I'll let everybody know at a certain point, because we need to keep moving forward with plans, maybe even for the following year.
Sandy says, please add her for RLI. So she needs to update for RLI. So.
Gotcha. No problem at all.
There is one question here, and I'm sure we'll probably get a few more. Have you heard any horror stories from outbounds due to COVID, or any more positive stories COVID related?
Yes, I had a Zoom call 2 weeks ago on a Saturday morning with every single student of that 2019-20 group, inbounds and outbounds. And so I had 25 kids on the call, and it was really amazing to me because I didn't bring up, let's talk about COVID. That wasn't the purpose. The purpose of the call was to say, how's everybody doing? Hi, how are you? What's going on? Da, da, da. Because these kids are anywhere between 17 and 20 now. Maybe, yeah, not 21, but 17 and 20. It was amazing that nearly every single one of them were still in lockdown in some fashion, whether they were here in the US or they were in Europe or they were in Japan or Brazil. They were all in some sort of lockdown. And from what you've read in terms of how different countries are approaching lockdowns and restrictions, the kids were pretty much going through exactly the same thing. Every one of them was fine. Nobody had COVID. They were all safe. They were all good. They were happy to see each other. You know, some of them, they get together all the time anyway. They plan things for like travel and such. But I did have a Zoom call with them, and very, very relieved that there weren't any COVID issues. I really was.
Lou, we have a question coming over now from Facebook. Are there clubs which traditionally send students?
Yes. I have a list of about 25 clubs that have over the years participated in some fashion in youth exchange. And as I said earlier, we generally have between 15 and 17 inbounds. And the only way we can have that many is we need 15 to 17 Rotary clubs who will host inbounds. So that has been one of the issues that I've had this past year. And that is some of the clubs who have hosted in the past on a regular basis have said, we're not going to host in 21-22. So basically I am down now to a maximum of 10 inbounds. So I'm hoping to get clubs a little more interested for the following year for 21-22, get them back involved. And I understand why people might want to sit out. It could be financial. It could just be a safety concern. It could be, you know, they're not meet as often as they might, and they don't have people who might want to be youth exchange officers and volunteers. But in order to have this program work, we need clubs. We need volunteers. And if a club is interested, for example, I actually have 2 brand new clubs for 21-22. So I lost 7, picked up 2. And those 2 were just because of individuals in that club who were interested in the program, wanted to get involved. And then I kind of walked them through getting involved. They're putting in their volunteer applications. They're asking information about when we find out about inbounds. I said, well, you know, you're going to find out soon, but it's not going to be until we know more about the director's decision. So that current situation this year, 21-22, is going to be it's going to be a hard year to kind of get everybody walking through it. And vaccinations could be, it's just an unknown at this point. Because I know many people on this call, you've had your vaccinations, but we're not 16, we're not 17. I do know one of my girls that's going outbound to Germany. She's getting her first vaccination this week. I'm not sure how that's happening, but she's getting it. So I really don't know how she's doing. I've got to follow up and find out what's going on. But it may turn out that vaccinations will be required. I will tell you as well, every single normal vaccination, measles, smallpox, I mean, all the things that are normal that you vaccinate your kids from the time they're born until they're in school, those are all required worldwide. They're all the same. And every once in a while, I'll get a student who comes here inbound and they'll be missing their latest booster. Well, the school calls and they say, you got to get this kid vaccinated with this latest measles shot or whatever it might be. And we take care of it just, very, very simply. And it may turn out that vaccinations for COVID might get required at a certain point. I just don't know yet.
Excellent. I don't see any more questions at this time, so I'll do a last call for questions.
Last call for alcohol.
While we were waiting on any questions to come in, I just want to thank everyone on Zoom today for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. We do these CWRAP calls every Monday at 11 o'clock. And so next Monday, March 22nd, we will be joined by Herman Dixon from the Somerville Rotary Club to be talking about Shelter Box. President-elect, you are recommended to be on that call as well next Monday at 11 o'clock. And I encourage you, if you do not know what Shelter Box is, how about just go online and look some information up about Shelter Box prior to the presentation. It's an incredible thing that Rotarians do. So we look forward to having Herman next week. And then on March 29th, we will hear from Karen Jackson, who will talk about ponds and rain runoff, what you need to know. Another announcement, this is coming straight from District Governor Pauline, is the discontinuation of the monthly happy hour as everyone integrated into weekly meetings. So that was the first Thursday, one of the, I think the second Thursday of every month, I believe. So Lou, excellent presentation. Thank you for responding a couple of those little questions in the chat box. For those of you on here, thanks again. This is currently live on the Rotary International District 7770 Facebook page. Recorded it, will be posted to our YouTube channel later in the week. But I encourage you to please share this presentation on your club's Facebook page as well, to share the great news and information about Youth Exchange. And I do know from previously in the meeting that Lou is available to speak to your club on Youth Exchange if you would like him to do so. So President-elects, that's probably a little thing to remember is next year, make sure if you're looking for a speaker, Lou is always available to talk. So Lou, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
At this time, I will conclude our program today with the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill or better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? See you next Monday, March 22nd, for the next conversation with Rotary Action People. Take care, folks. That's a wrap. Bye-bye.